Experience.
And right now we're getting ready to go on around midnight with Mike Bonner.
We're going to talk about the first annual Urban Podcast Month.
We're going to talk about the Connected Experience podcast.
And we're going to definitely talk about the first podcast album available on Tidal but streaming on other platforms, and that's the Connected Experience podcast album. We got exclusive interviews with Premium Pete,
Eshawn,
Pay Cash,
and who else? Freeway Ricky Rose.
Yeah, so y'all stay tuned while we up here at 9:10 a.m.
Okay. Excuse me.
What's going on? Yeah, don't have a seat.
Should have worn a blanket.
DJ that knows how to make beats. And I was like, and then have to walk out. And
what was you guys' favorite songs, or your first song growing up? The first song that you ever purchased. My bad.
The first song that we ever purchased was Being Rakim.
Hey, Being Rakim. Yeah, Being Rakim.
oh my goodness.
What song?
Is this needed early?
What was that? I mean, just that album.
Pay the full album.
Pay the full album.
Yeah, all that shit. Young boy. You know.
So they have a podcast where they basically link people together that, like, we're looking for deep.
Hey, so y'all here to promote a podcast, right? Y'all here to promote a podcast, right? Yeah. What's the podcast called?
The Connected Experience.
All right, just a minute, guys. That a little creepy.
Yes. Almost Bill Cosby creepy.
Wait a minute.
You wait a minute.
You
No
guitar,
fitting
right?
pops.
Yes. Okay.
Oh my God, Bill Cosby.
Got a Bill Cosby.
I'm sad though about that.
I am.
I just posted
I
on
am
my podcast.
That's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's so many black kids who were inspired to go to HBCUs or go to college in general because of this different world.
And
that was his thing.
And speak grammatically correct. Not be lazy in the tongue with ebonics.
Yeah.
Remember all of
I like Ebonics on Tuesday.
Nappy Headed Kings.
It's okay when you know you can use ebonics,
I'm waiting. I want to make sure.
You gotta put
my second one on
I
there.
call it being
But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna put my first one on Anchor. You know what I mean? Y'all know what Anchor is.
You guys know what to do.
Right.
Back and forth. I'm black man. I'm always, but I gotta be in the move forth. And forward and be
like
like
a wise man
To
being
everything.
fool.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It gave me an option. It was like,
Hey,
hey guys,
y'all can come over here. Yeah, but move your things. Get your things up there. Here we go. They're gonna stand on the standby right here. Okay.
That's not my bag.
I can move over. I'm done, Mike.
No, you good. You good.
Okay.
Hold on for a second.
But like I was telling you, that brought about a catalyst.
Who's coming on the air?
Conversation that we need to talk to each other. And that's how we talk to
But
each
see,
other.
but then when you hear songs like Look at That and all of that, and nobody gets upset with that kind of stuff. But
I am.
How much time I got, Courtney?
I don't like that
That's like that
Percocet.
slick
Brian will
flag
tell you.
flavor.
How do I feel about that?
Right.
All that Percocet,
All that slick flag
promoting all of that.
So we got some cats in here right now. We got some cats in here right now. I got a new podcast. The podcast is a new thing.
it's lit.
For those of you who don't know, it's a new thing. I did one in in New York some years ago. This cat got a popular podcast. Some cats who are affiliated with what's the guy? Was it radio show Howard Stern?
Oh yeah,
This cat's
Howard
had a
Stern.
podcast. So this is SJ and AJ. What up? We got the music right here. When he was a kid, SJ was playing this right here. This is SJ Jam. This is the SJ Jam right here.
The joint.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of
This you right here, SJ. Ooh, SJ.
I'm SJ.
Okay. This is you right here.
SJ came in here
East
looking
side,
like
East
LL
side and
Cool
West
J.
side.
Anytime.
A-Town?
Yeah.
Oh, what you know about Spring Hill?
everything.
I know about it all.
Okay, I used to be over there. A lot of the kids growing up in Inkster.
See, yo, you from
Back in the
town,
day.
Yeah. So you know the history about
Oh, with the Stardust Lounge. What? Give me some of that fried fish at the Stardust.
Soul Food Sunday.
Soul Food Sunday. Used to be comedy in there, man, back in the day. That's my girl, Pat. I love her. Say hello. Oh, and Inkster, yeah, she can run for mayor. And won at least twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so y'all both from Inkster, born and raised.
We
We
twins.
identical twins.
Y'all
bro.
twin. Hold on, y'all. Okay, now I see that. There they go. I had to lean back for a second.
Yeah.
I had to I couldn't see how, because he got the LL on and you got on whatever, and no, it's just different. But y'all are twins for real.
Yeah. That's us on the cover of that magazine right
Ink-
there.
Inktown in the house.
Yeah.
Where's the podcast being done?
We do it out of Oak Park,
Michigan.
Shop Talk.
Oh, y'all talking at the same time too. Y'all them kind of
They're identical
say the same
twins.
thing. He in a sentence for you sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing, dude. Twins. So how's this going for y'all so far?
Man, it's going pretty well, man. So our podcast
It's
is
called
based.
Connected Experience.
Connected
I'm SJ.
Experience.
I'm AJ, and
we
we
the
the
Connected
Connected
Experience.
Experience. So basically, what we do is we connect people, man. We play the liaison. No matter what you do in life, you just one connection away. So we make sure we make that connection for people,
I like that.
and that's just how we live our life. Our motto is, "I
want for my brother what I want for myself."
So that's just, if you, my brother, just in the world, you want to be successful. We want that for you. How could I want it for myself and not want it for you also?
Exactly.
I like that.
agree.
Okay.
I mean,
So, and as opposed to doing traditional radio, FM, AM, whatever, what makes you want to get a podcast?
Well, we actually started our podcast because we had been studying podcasts for 18 months or whatever.
Okay.
And after we were studying the podcast, we just seen a niche in it that we could fulfill that was our natural life. Because if anybody knows us, they know we'll give you our plugs, bro. We ain't stingy with it because
Right.
it might help you way more than it can help us.
we
so.
we not the type of people who live in the fear of somebody getting bigger than us because we introduce them.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, our blessings come from introducing people and making sure everything working
Exactly.
and moving parts. So
Exactly.
that's what we
And
do.
really, if they get bigger, they should be able to put you back on. You know what I mean?
Right. But we ain't looking for nothing.
Right, we
No,
ain't-
exactly. No,
yeah,
I like
yeah.
that. I like that. Y'all said that y'all study podcasts. So what podcasts have y'all studied?
I mean, every type. So podcasts like music, so it's different
Okay.
genres and categories.
Okay,
So
because
we
I
listen.
just started watching podcasts, so I'm new to the game.
So I'm a big fan of story podcast, story form. So what I mean by that is right now I'm listening to one and it's telling stories of people in the past in Georgia who went to go vote.
Okay.
Right. So and it detailed all of that because before you got a Voters' Right Act, you got to know that people was trying to vote in the South way before that.
Right.
And what was happening to them. It tell a story about like a town in Georgia and what was happening to the blacks when they go try to vote. But I'm just a fan of those type of podcasts
Right.
because I love the story, man. It's backstories to everything that people do.
And then on the other end, I'm a fan of music podcasts or point of view podcasts like that, because what we don't do on our podcast is we don't talk about anything in the media cycle. So we
Right,
can
right.
record 50 episodes and drop them whenever we want because
Right.
you won't be able to date it.
It's
so,
exactly.
Because that's not what we doing. We connecting you,
people.
and that don't got nothing to do with the current news cycle.
So I listen to a lot of point of view podcasts, and I also listen to certain story podcasts. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah. Discovering a new podcast for us right now is like discovering new music.
yeah, it's like rap in the '90s.
That's
So
how
what
it
y'all
is.
think about like Joe Budden podcast or like
He got
Taxis
one of the
and-
best ones. Joe Budden got
Joe
one of
Budden,
the best.
Tax. But what's going on in urban podcasting right now is that the majority of shows are spin-off
that's
of
what
shows
okay.
that they listen to. So you could tell
Right.
who listened to what podcast
Exactly.
by how they podcast is.
Exactly.
And our podcast is nothing like
Nothing
that.
like that.
So what we did is at the Connected Experience, we determined that May, from here on out, will be Urban Podcast Month
Mm-hmm.
because we don't got to wait for somebody else to tell us. So what we've been doing,
Mm.
in the middle of April, we just started DMing a bunch of urban podcasts, and by urban we mean black. So we just started DMing a bunch of
I
urban
love
podcasts.
that they say that so synchronized. We mean black.
Right, so
Wakanda.
so we was DMing them, telling them what suggesting what hashtags to use, and the
Right.
hashtag is Urban Podcast Month 2018, Urban Podcast Month, and May is Urban Podcast Month and Urban Podcast Month Detroit. And we just was telling them to use those hashtags whenever they post or if they have an event in May, so people could see what's going on. So like for instance, if we in Milwaukee and want to know what's going on for Urban Podcast Month in Milwaukee, if you're using a hashtag, I should be able to see, and I could just go to Milwaukee on the weekend and just hit a live event or something like that.
So then I use the hashtag Urban Podcast Milwaukee.
No. Urban Podcast Month 2018.
Okay.
That way, anybody who will use it. So I might just be searching the hashtag, seeing what's going on, and I'm going to Milwaukee, and I say, such and such podcast is having a live event.
Right.
Let me go. And what I made sure, we made it a point to every podcast that we hit up, we made sure to listen to them at least once.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And then we would post, and like tag a podcast, and we get everybody tagging all these podcasts that they want to listen to, and it's building a community. So from here on out, May is Urban Podcast Month, and this year, May 18th. What are we doing May 18th?
We having the first event for Urban Podcast Month, and basically we doing Jeopardy for the culture.
Okay.
And then we doing hip hop trivia, because a lot of urban podcasts surrounded by hip hop, or the hosts think that they hip hop heads, especially out here in Detroit.
Right.
So
Right.
come play Urban Podcast Trivia with us, hip hop trivia, Jeopardy for the culture, and we just want people to come out, have fun,
And this is gonna
celebrate
be
their
May 18th?
podcast.
This is May 18th. Where's
Where's
it?
this gonna be at?
It's at 25900 Greenfield. That's in Oak Park, Michigan, Suite
Okay.
506. That's 25900 Greenfield. That's in Oak Park, Michigan, Suite 506.
506.
Okay, we're gonna have y'all repeat that before the
Yeah,
show
we
starts.
got a chef, man. Everything. We did it with our
Free drinks.
Yeah, I mean, you can bring your own drinks because we don't drink. So
Okay,
if I
okay,
don't
I
buy
like
it for
that.
myself, I ain't gonna buy it for you.
I get it. I get it.
You know
I
what
get
I'm
it.
saying?
But it's also we also celebrating shop. We record out of Shop Talk Podcast Studios.
Okay.
It's their year anniversary at
For the
Shop
studio.
Talk for the studio, and it's also their 2-year anniversary as
As
a
a
show.
podcast.
Because Shop Talk is an actual podcast with my homeboys. That's who on the cover with is Dame and Jay Johnson. They the co-host of Shop Talk podcast, and then it's also Unsavory Antics is they 1-year anniversary
As a podcast,
As a
too.
podcast, they record out of Shop Talk Studios as well. So it's just a biggie. That's what I'm saying. We just celebrating the culture of podcasting.
Okay.
You know, so like you just said you started a podcast.
This is
and like,
somewhere you will want to be.
This is somewhere
just
you
to
wanna
get
be,
to know the
right.
people.
I'm definitely into it.
Yeah.
and it's like if you promoting a product, or if you an artist or something like that, we just put 100 podcasts in a room, so that's 100 different shows that you could come
Exactly.
on
Right.
and promote, and that's
I like
just from
that.
stepping in the building, because
I like that.
that's what in true connected experience fashion. That's what we do.
And I feel like podcasting is so new to the world that it's getting open. You know what I mean? Like not a lot of people know about podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's
wide open.
it's wide open. And I believe in England they can't shoot podcasts for some reason, some government reason. So the England people over in London, they love American podcasts.
Right.
It's a lot of fan base over there.
Yeah.
So like you were saying with the live show, you can go over to England, and once you get that fan base, you can collect some money because they want to see it live.
yeah, they-
You know, they love that American culture. So no, that's excellent, man. I'm glad you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
So he may probably ask you this question. I mean, how many podcasts do you have on deck right now?
That's going to
That's
be at the
something-
event, or that's so the studio we record at is 25 podcasts to record out of
Different people.
Yeah, different
25
shows.
different shows.
25
Okay,
different
okay.
shows, right? And that's why we celebrating on May 18th, because the podcast studio that we record at, this is their year anniversary.
1 year.
One year. So
It's smoking though, ain't it?
Yeah.
It's going fast.
yeah, it's going fast for them, and we about 23 episodes in right
But
now.
the difference with our show is we don't number our shows,
Yeah,
because like
yeah,
I
yeah.
said, we don't talk about
want you,
nothing
right.
dated.
Right.
And like out of all the podcasts that's out there, ours is completely different. Like it's a bunch of people with podcasts that listen to us. Like y'all podcast is different because
When you say dated, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so you might say, so for instance, last week, every podcast mentioned Kanye West and what he was going through in his life. Last week, we didn't, because our show that came out last week, we probably recorded 3 weeks ago, because we don't talk about stuff that's
we don't
going
talk about the
on.
news cycle.
Current
Yeah,
news.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Why is that?
Because we connecting you. So if I'm so you a comedian, so I might know a film director who looking for a comedian. If I'm connecting y'all, that's the furthest thing from our mind, because we trying to connect y'all so y'all could do business and y'all business could grow.
So we'll bring both of y'all on, and we have
As
a set
opposed to
topic
have-
to talk about.
As
I
opposed to
get you.
having the topic of the day.
Right.
Right.
We got the
Have something
topic of
to-
the episode that's
So-
directly connected to who we connected. So we might talk about
The top 10 comedians in
Film.
we could talk about Harlem Nights. and
Right.
the whole show will be based off of Harlem Nights because somebody had to direct it, and it was comedians in it. So we will all give our point of view on Harlem Nights and how we felt about it. That way, we can record that show tomorrow and drop it next year. It won't be old.
But you do realize that radio is like a thing where if you don't talk about what's current, you'll lose listenership.
But this
It's
is
not radio.
It's not radio, it's podcast.
Yeah, totally
So what
different.
about
That's
when
the
they want to
difference,
find a topic like they want to hear your opinion about something that happened like last week?
You
Well,
would have
we
to
go on
listen to
other
it
shows.
on
Different
somebody
podcasts.
else's
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. See,
That's not their market.
Okay.
yeah. See, we
We
do
a
it.
mixed
My
podcast.
podcast, though, I
Yeah.
listen to-
We
Yeah,
do it.
okay.
Yeah. See,
You
we,
gonna stay in your lane.
yeah, we stay in our lane
I like
because
that.
that's what we do in our real life. Like
Right.
we've been doing that our whole life. So we said like, okay, we listen to all these podcasts who talk about current events. We just can't be the same.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm
That
saying?
makes-
So
that
You
what
makes
can't
do
sense.
we
compare
do?
us. You can't say this is like such and
Right.
such a show, and that's where we actually winning it.
Right, you don't want
Right.
to compete with.
Yeah, because
Go ahead.
a lot of the shows, like I said, you could tell who they listen to the majority of the time. Like, oh, this is a spinoff of, he trying to be like Tax, or
Right.
he trying to be like this, or so we don't want to ever get caught up in that. Now people gonna be like they trying to be like the Connected Experience because there's not no shows out there like that.
Right.
Like I said, we studied it for 18 months. We
Right.
really studied the actual
Where-
podcast
and
culture.
that was to
like,
see where could
do
we fit in with this
Y'all keep
growing
talking at the same
phenomenon.
time. You're throwing me up. You're getting me
Hey,
high.
no, you should have seen. Yeah, you should have seen them earlier, man. It was crazy. But so okay, so y'all do special guests,
Yeah.
and y'all do two or y'all do one?
No, okay, so if we connecting you, it has to be two people.
Right.
But if we just do, okay, so for example,
our favorite episode. The reason we got into podcasting
was
for real
to interview Esham, right? Because that's our favorite rapper.
Who's Eshawn?
Oh my God, you from Detroit?
Yeah.
You gotta check that card in.
Listen, we'll just send you the episode.
Look,
bro.
yeah.